So the next invasive I want to talk about today is oak wilt. So oak wilt is a vascular tree disease of oak, which causes rapid decline in mortality in your infected hosts. Due to the fast progression of this disease, it's thought to be introduced to the United States. However, its exact origin is unknown. This pathogen was first documented in Wisconsin in 1944 and has currently not been observed in Vermont. Although this pathogen can affect all species of oak, white oak family members have been found to be more resistant to this pathogen due to their ability to utilize tyloses during compartmentalization. For those of you unfamiliar with tyloses, it's basically just an outgrowth of cells that block conducting vessels within the tree, and this just helps stop the spread of a pathogen. Red oak family members don't utilize these tyloses, so the infection often leads to rapid mortality because the pathogen is inside the vascular system and therefore spreads quickly throughout the tree. So this pathogen spreads large distances through a variety of bark and sap-feeding beetles. Here's a really great poster that New York DEC published recently showing what nididulid beetles can vector, aka spread this pathogen. The oak leaf in the center does throw the scale off a little bit, but the scale is on the bottom right, and it shows 5 millimeters. So for perspective, like the average grain of rice is about 5 to 7 millimeters long. So the average vector here is about the size of a grain of rice. So locally, this pathogen spreads through root grafts that oaks make with each other. And then lastly, like all invasives, humans assist the spread. We typically move infected firewood or wood products long distances. So this pathogen has currently been reported in 24 states, with the most recent being in New York in 2008 and Ontario, Canada in 2023. The closest infestation to Vermont is Glenville, New York, and that was detected in 2013. So this pathogen is an ascomycota, which indicates that its asexual life cycle will have asexual fruiting bodies called conidia and conidia spores, and then it also has a sexual life cycle that produces sexual fruiting bodies, which are the perithecia and ascospores. Both the asexual and sexual life cycles are over land, which just means that's what you're going to notice in the tree. So if you look at this life cycle to the right, you'll notice a depiction of a wilted tree. Next, there are fruiting bodies in a hyphal mat, and this is what's producing the spores. These spores are then picked up by an insect accidentally and then brought to a healthy tree or an asymptomatic tree. And when the insects are actually feeding on the tree, they're causing damage and inoculating the tree with the fungi. This fungi is then able to establish successfully and then continue this cycle. As I mentioned in the last slide, it's also vectored to other oaks through root grafts, which is underground and really hard to detect. And that's just what this bottom cycle is showing. So you have a healthy tree that's connected to a tree that has oak wilt, and it's able to spread them through the roots. So now that you have a little bit better background on oak wilt, we can talk about what it looks like in the field. As I previously mentioned, symptom progression is going to differ based on oak family, with red oak family members having rapid onset and mortality. And this is typically going to happen over a single growing season. So if you think about a really huge, probably the biggest red oak you've ever seen in your life, that can die within 3 months of being infected with the oak wilt pathogen. It's very aggressive. Early detection is going to indicate that the outer margins of the leaves are wilted and discolored. This is going to lead to early leaf drop, which happens during the growing season and gives the tree a fall-like appearance in the middle of the summer. With leaf drop, branch mortality will progress from the outward extremities and then progress downward and inward. If you scrape back the sunken areas on the bulb, which is what's shown in figure A, in the middle, you'll find fungal mats that are beneath the bark, and that's what's shown in figure B, as well as xylem streaking within the wood. In our white oak family members, this pathogen has a much slower onset and symptom progression. Similar to red oaks, they do share the early detection, indicating that the margins of the leaves are wilted and discolored. You'll get that early leaf drop and this fall-like appearance in the summer. But again, what makes white oak family members unique is the utilization of tyloses and compartmentalization. So like I previously mentioned, tyloses are just outgrowths on parenchyma cells of the xylem vessels that aid in the containment of pest and pathogen damage. These tyloses are why we use white oak family members to make wine barrels and corks, because they just add an extra layer of sealing to the compartmentalization process. So since white oak family members are better at compartmentalization because they have these tyloses, oak wilt's not able to spread as quickly or aggressively. However, they are sacrificing more functional xylem tissue in order to stop this pathogen from spreading. So sacrificing more of this xylem tissue is disrupting and reducing the water and mineral transport, which is going to cause white oak family members to have more dieback. So this compartmentalization strategy also affects your ability to see xylem streaking, as well as the fungal mats. So in red oak family members, those symptoms are going to be much more apparent, but in white oak family members, you're most likely going to see your dieback symptoms. So what can be done to control and or eradicate this pathogen? Well, educating the public and landowners is an efficient way to reduce its spread because education not only serves as a preventative measure for not moving this pathogen into the state, but it also helps us have early detections and rapid response. So if we find a single tree, we can respond quickly and we can help prevent its spread throughout the site or even throughout the state. Something you can also become familiar with is how to report a sighting on VT invasives and then also show others how to report on VT invasives. You can also stop moving firewood. This is something that's really hard to control, but the best bet is always to buy it where you burn it. And lastly, educating the public on the disease cycle to help prevent its spread. So this pathogen is often spread by insect feeding. So any open wound on an oak tree can actually attract these sap-feeding nididulid beetles within 10 minutes. That's not a lot of time. So during peak beetle emergence, which is typically between April and July, we really recommend not harvesting, pruning, or wounding your oaks. And then the best time to harvest, prune, and wound would be in the winter time, so like November through March when these beetles are overwintering. In the state of Vermont, we conduct aerial surveys and we also respond to public reports. Trees that are reported get surveyed by either myself or another protection staff member. And if we think it's suspect, we'll actually collect samples and send it off to Cornell for PCR testing. And this is just what that looks like. We typically take several Ziploc bags of material, we mail them off, and then Cornell's gonna plate the fungi. So that's what you see in this Petri dish here to see if it grows oak wilt. And then they'll take a little chunk of that and DNA confirm it with PCR testing. So host removal and destruction is also a viable control effort, although it can be costly, and this is especially in your forested settings. So if you can't remove the entire tree and root system, a cheaper alternative would be to sever any root grafts by installing a plow line around an infection center. And that's what this person in this machine is doing. This is just disrupting root grafts and then preventing that underground spread. If you can remove the entire tree, you're going to be able to destroy the fungal mats inside. You're going to be destroying any beetles that are overwintering inside of the oaks, and this will help slow the overland spread before their emergence in the spring. Again, if possible, we really want the root system to be removed. In cases where the root system can't be, herbicides can be used to kill off the roots within a buffer zone of an oak wilt infection center, and this just reduces the likelihood it's going to be able to graft to another tree. So the last pest